this video, I'm going to talk about tending options and various tethers to get maximum adjustability out of the Unicender. One of the very first tethers that I used with the Unicender is the Avr Tether. I liked it because I could girth hitch it to the Unicender to facilitate strumming. It also has a steel ring that you can easily attach your foot loop to. You also can adjust this tether with one hand. I think being able to adjust it with one hand is very important when you've reached your tie-in point. One disadvantage is that that's about as close as you can get right here to the Unicender. I could get a little closer if I directly tied my bridge through the thimble. The other disadvantage with this tether is that to extend it, it pretty much takes two hands and a little bit of effort to get that to pull through the splice on the tether. You have to get all of the weight off of there, and if I didn't have the saddle on there, it would be a little easier, but nonetheless it's a little bit inconvenient to extend the tether. In various configurations, I've also used the Rock Exotica dual sender and a Petzl shunt. In this configuration, I also was able to girth hitch to the Unicender. This uses a webbing sling, a loop runner, and a Kong duck, which allows the flexibility. Again, one-handed adjustment, and it allows me to get my connection pretty darn close to the base of the Unicender once I've reached my tie-in point. But as I'm ascending and basically using my Unicender as a hand ascender going up, I use it at about this length. The Rook swivel pulley attached to my bridge and keepers that I've put on the carabiner keep things properly oriented, so that if there's any flop, I don't have to worry about connections getting over here and disconnecting my carabiner, or getting it side loaded on the carabiner. That will stay in the proper orientation for the carabiner. The one thing I didn't like about this is sometimes with the webbing, the webbing would tend to get a little kinked in there. It's still rated for that, but it just didn't seem as neat and as tidy as it could be. One thing that a Unicender doesn't do very well is tending with just that L bracket. I tried putting on a sheave, and this is just a inexpensive Petzl plastic sheave with a cotter pin, and I build it up with a little bit of epoxy. It helps, but it's still not really great when it comes to tending the Unicender or setting it up for another mechanical advantage. This is another configuration that makes coming back from a limb walk useful, or anytime you might need a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage, is by putting a prusik above your line with a revolver or even just a carabiner. You can bring that up, put that through the revolver, and get a fairly nice mechanical advantage for the ascent. Or when you're coming back from a limb walk, it gives you the opportunity to pull yourself back on the limb walk and still tend your line. But as you can see, one of the things I didn't like is it still doesn't tend real well through the Unicender. It does better than without the bracket, but it's still not great, and that's something I've been working on to try to resolve with the Unicender. But nonetheless, you can see how that that does play out a lot better. If you're going out on a limb walk, it makes it a lot easier to go out on the limb walk and have your line tend out smoothly. And it still comes back okay. Now some of you may not be comfortable with it, but I've also used a hand ascender in the same configuration, again attaching the revolver pulley to the base of the hand of the sender. But I know there is discussion about having a hand ascender above your friction hitch. This is the configuration I'm liking the best right now. I've attached a single eye split tail to the bottom of the Unicender with a scaffold nut. It gives me the orientation down the side of the anchor on the Unicender so that it facilitates the angle for strumming if I would like. I have one-handed adjustability with the tether. The tether is made up of a CT roll and lock, and I have keepers on the side of the roll and lock to keep it oriented, and a keeper on the eye of the split tail to also keep it oriented. The rook pulley swivel keeps the carabiner oriented as well, so when I'm doing a rope walk, if there's any flop in the system, the orientation is maintained and I don't end up with a slide load on the carabiners. So when I'm doing a rope walk, I have my Yates foot loop attached to the Unicender. I can adjust that with one hand when I reach a tie-in point. I can easily adjust the length on my tether. So that's my orientation with the drum, the Unicender, CT roll and lock, a length of single eye split tail, and the rook swivel attachment point. Just for comparison purposes, you can see what a difference it makes between that Avr tether and the attachment point using the CT rope grab. I get considerably closer to the bottom of the Unicender. And again, one of the really important things to me is being able to get maximum adjustability, to be able to lengthen my tether whenever I need to, so that I can use the Unicender as basically a hand ascender when I'm doing a rope walk, and with the foot loop attached, and also being very adjustable one-handed. It's easy to make adjustments to that depending on what I need, but that allows me to get some good adjustability in my tether. Just so you can get a little closer up view, that's the CT. This is the single eye split tail. I use keepers to maintain the orientation. The rook pulley also maintains orientation. This is a configuration that can be used for traverses or positioning in the tree, and I'm just pointing out right now the position of this hitch climber pulley. So you'll see in the next segment how that helps me when I'm trying to get my Unicender to tend a little better. That's a configuration for traversing. It's got a hitch climber pulley, a friction hitch, and I can leave this SRT if I want. When I'm leaving from one tree, I just use that for the descent, or the leaving the tree, and I use this to pull myself over to the next tree. If I want to come back, I can have my revolver pulley and pull myself back. Alright, as you'll remember from the last segment, all I've removed now is the prusik and changed the configuration slightly, but I still have my hitch climber pulley attached to the rook swivel, and if I needed to have this tend a little better, it tends better coming from back from a limb walk. If I set this for a limb walk, it tends my hitch climber, or it tends my Unicender much better. And I still have the adjustability of that tether. If I want to adjust the tether coming back, I can adjust the tether, also tend my Unicender at the same time. I'll do that one more time. It's all pretty easy to do one-handed. That's adjusting my tether. If I needed to get some help to adjust my tether, say I'm not standing on a limb yet, and I wanted to adjust my tether, I can do that pulling down, getting my mechanical advantage. If I want to use that for the limb walk, or for just tending my Unicender, it's still not perfect. One day there'll be the perfect pulley, and to have the perfect pulley on the Unicender, the perfect pulley would have to be some kind of an L bracket that comes off of here and attaches in about this position. If there was a pulley in that position right there, so that the line could come down and exit to tend and do all these things, that would be perfect. In the meantime, this seems to be working pretty well for me.